Refereeing isn't just a job, it becomes a way of life.
And a big day too for Wayne Barnes. His 100th Test match, equaling that of Nigel Owens, and the whistle that he's holding is the same whistle used by John Dallas in the Test match back in 1905.
I refereed my first rugby match as a 15-year-old between Breamthirds and Berry Hill Whoppers, up in the Forest of Dean where I'm from. I got injured playing and it meant a couple of seasons off, and so a friend of my dad's was a referee, my school teacher was a referee, and so they said, look, why don't you give it a try and help out with some local matches or some school matches. So off I trundled to my local third team pitch. And there I was introduced to a lovely tradition. You get a tankard with referee written on it, and you get a couple of free pints. And as a 15-year-old, I'm not condoning that, but it was pretty impressive, and it kind of hooked me for life. It got to a point when I had to make a decision. I'm just about to reach a national panel of referees, which are the top 50 referees in England who do all the National League games. And I was told, look, you're going to have to stop playing because you can get injured and we need a bit more time commitment. So I thought I'd discuss it with my teammates. So, you can imagine sitting round after a training session saying to them, I'm going to have to, probably retire at the end of the season. They quickly told me when I should be retiring, and it was a lot kind of sooner than I thought. So often you don't make the decisions, you just let your friends and your teammates around you. And my friends from university still, my closest friends in the world, and they still remind me it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was a really interesting week in my life back in November of 2003. I'd done all my legal training as a barrister, and then you apply to join your chambers. And so November 2003 will always stick in my mind. My first Premiership rugby match was going to take place between Bath and Rotherham on the Saturday. And the Thursday before, so 2 days before that, was my application to join 3 Temple Gardens. So that night, the Thursday before my first Premiership final, out with my friends, those university friends again, waiting to see what was going to happen. And so at about 10 o'clock that night, I got the call to say, you're now a member of 3 Temple Gardens, you are a barrister, you can stay with us for the rest of your life. So, a momentous kind of a moment for me. And then you wake up the next morning, the Friday morning, we celebrated a little bit that night. Then you've got to prepare for your first Premiership match the next day. So it was a whirlwind 72 hours. Look, it's a balancing act juggling the 2 jobs, but massively rewarding. One, because you've got a release from rugby to be able to jump in and do some legal work, or when you've had a difficult or busy week as a lawyer to run out at Kingsholm or at Welford Road, to take your mind off that kind of work. So I love that ability to balance the 2, and wherever I've been as a lawyer, they've always been really kind of allowing and really kind of willing for me to be able to juggle 2, and the RFU have always supported that. So at times, you've got a lot of balls in the air, but as I said, it's probably made me a better referee and a better lawyer by juggling both jobs. I'm a criminal lawyer by trade. That's where I started off, in the magistrates' courts and the Crown Courts, of particularly in London, but across the southeast in particular, where you would go down into the cells, hours before your client's about to either stand trial or to have their first hearing or to apply for bail, and try and gain their confidence and try and explain to them what's about to happen, and also then to do your best to make sure that their voice is heard. And also, you think about the first time, sometimes you go into a changing room, it's the first time you've met a captain. 2 hours before the match, 2 hours before you're on that big stage. And so there's lots of similarities about that ability to be able to give your opinion, to listen to people, to be able to make sure that people feel that they've been heard.
Okay. Michael, this is a penalty. When a player runs up and shouts, that's got to be a card. Sorry. Okay, just ask him to calm down, please.
So 2006 was my first international game. Fiji versus Samoa in Suva. So you know, if you could imagine certain games around the world, you know, I'm sure we've all experienced, you know, Cardiff on a match day, and you know that experience, or going over to the Stade de France and the tricolour flags and the noise as the Marseillaise is sang. But Fiji versus Samoa, just didn't compute what that was going to be like. So it was one of those moments where you're like, this is going to be absolutely fantastic, but I have no idea what I'm walking into. That excitement is still there. You know, I got my appointments for Wales versus New Zealand as my 100th game, and it's like, wow, this is going to be a full house in Cardiff against New Zealand. The haka will take place. You know, all of those kind of memories flood back from all of those other games. But that game back in Suva will always bring a smile to my face. I can probably remember all of those previous games in some aspect. It might be, you know, the travelling to the ground. You know, for example, when we go to France, we often get a police escort and are flying around the périphérique. It might be a certain moment in a game which, you know, is either controversial and people talk about it after, or a moment of magic where a player, you know, through a fantastic piece of skill scores in a corner. It might be a piece of history. For example, you know, seeing Ireland just recently in my 99th Test beat the All Blacks in New Zealand for the first time. There's all of those little moments which, you know, jog certain memories. But I think, you know, Six Nations has certain kind of connotations to it, and it's wonderful to, every time you're involved in the Six Nations, to remember those. Big World Cup games, you know, I've been involved in 4 World Cups, and if I go to next year's World Cup, that will be my 5th World Cup, and they're all so special. So all of those games have all got a different memory or bring a smile to my face for a different reason.
Whether he gets out any quicker, he can fall that side and obstruct the 9 path. That's what we spoke about, freeing up the ball for 9. 1 against you, 1 against 6, 1 against 1.
It's allowed me to meet some wonderful people, some amazing players, some amazing coaches, some amazing administrators, but also some amazing referees. And it's probably what it's changed me is it's just allowed me to have that breadth of kind of friendship. You know, growing up in the Forest of Dean as you know, very much a working class part of the world, to be able to travel to New Zealand, to Fiji, to South Africa, to all these wonderful European cities. That's where it's probably changed me. It's just shown me the world that I probably would never have seen.